Welcome back after the short break. Now we have with us Professor Dr. Shiv K Tripathi with his session Sharing and Building on Expertise for the Global Goals. Professor Shiv K Tripathi currently serves as Professor and Dean of Training at IIHMR University, Jaipur. He also leads Humanistic Management Network India as chapter lead. Professor Shiv has more than 23 years of experience in teaching, research, and higher education management. He is a member in the United Nations Principles for Responsible Management Education, PRME, Anti Corruption, and Poverty Eradication working groups. Currently, he is working on mainstreaming of SDGs in higher education through teaching, research, and outreach activities. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Shiv. Over to you for your session, Sharing and Building on Expertise for the Global Goals.
Thank you so much, Aparna, for the invitation and also the opportunity to share the thoughts and reflections on sustainable development goals, particularly in reference to SDG17. So in next few minutes, I would try to reflect on what I learned during the last 10 plus years of journey earlier with Millennium Development Goals and now with Sustainable Development Goals. And I have been involved in the research and training capacity building, particularly on sustainable development goals and, of course, forming the partnerships and cross-sectoral partnerships for realizing the different sustainable development goals, particularly in education and healthcare sector. So when we are talking about SDG 17, it's as if you look into the goal statement, it's about the inclusive partnerships we are talking. And when we say inclusive partnership, it requires integration in approach, integration in the vision, goals and values of the partners. I would reflect more on it, how it can be. And this has to be mainstream, partnership has to be mainstream for realizing the goals. And that we all realize and we agree to it. Although the goal was a late addition in the initial list of 16 goals, but it to me, it appears as a as a driver for the realizing the goals. Also, on the other side, if you look into the context post-COVID or the impact, if you look into the impact of COVID, official development assistance decreasing, to particularly for developing countries or the least developed countries. All the economic forecasts indicate that there is going to be slight contraction in the economy, and we can witness it across the context, geographical context, not one country or few countries, but globally its impact is very, very much visible. And therefore, there is a very strong cooperation is required. At this point of time, we need to revisit our approach of development collaboration, that how we can look into the partnerships. And when we say it's not just a conventional partnership, as we used to have or used to understand in the development space. So, as I mentioned that the partnership under Goal 17 is critical, one thing I would like to particularly highlight while forging the cross-border or cross-functional partnership, that we cannot limit the impact of the partnership. Sometimes it becomes very myopic if we focus on just one goal and we say, hey, see, it's for healthcare or it's for education or it's for environmental sustainability. That's not the case. It has the multi-dimensional impact across the targets in the given matrix of the sustainable development goal targets. When we are saying healthcare system improvement, at the same time, we have to think of capacity building, we have to think of the education, we have to think of the training, we have to think of the infrastructure for healthcare and how we are going to deliver it. So when I look into a number of upcoming partnerships or the projects, that one very good trend, as I can see in the International Development Partnership, has been that the importance of this cross-sectoral, cross-border partnership is being increasingly realized, and people are feeling the importance and they are going beyond the tradition. So when we say that we have to look into the partnership and spirit of the goal 17. It's about not only one or two areas, rather we have to look into how we can be more innovative in forming the partnership and transferring the knowledge. Uh, Although there are 19 target areas as given in the list of the SDG17, where we want to improve that how the development assistance partnership should be, what type of partnership should be encouraged, how we can promote how we can ensure the supporting rest of the SDGs through the different type of international, local, or global partnership. But particularly, I would like to draw attention on 17.16 and 17.17. And if you look into 17.16, it talks about a very, very important word that is the multi-stakeholder partnerships. So the time is over. It's not only the civil society, it's not only the cup of tea of only a particular kind of organizations, but rather we have to look into that how we can create the golden triangle of business, government, and civil society, that we can work together, we can form the collective action that will help in driving solutions across the different areas. And having said so, I again stress that while creating the international global partnership for 17, the important area is to look into the multidimensional impact. That it could be for poverty eradication, but it can extend to the education, it can extend to the healthcare, it can also extend to the economic development, it can touch the gender dimension. So we have to look into the more and more integrative and inclusive we are, the more and more successful the partnerships are, and better and better impact it is likely to produce. So multi-stakeholder partnership is the key, and particularly for sharing the best practices, the technology, the resources, including financial resources. Now, you see, if you look into, even in the development stage, the sustainability of financing is in question, and most of the agencies which are providing the financial assistance internationally are looking into that how in the long term we can develop a sustainable mechanism. And so far what we witnessed with the history of development is that the development funds come and disappear. We have a monitoring and evaluation, we conduct one research study, we say that this has been the development impact, and once the project is over, other than few people trained or few people, some resources created, there is nothing to ensure the sustainability of the long-term impact of the financing. But now this trend particularly has changed in the SDGs. Till MDGs, we were driving the conventional approach of sustainability financing development. But now more and more we are looking into, okay, today if we are providing the X amount of money to a country or for an initiative or a project, then how we are going to ensure that the initiative continues to grow and continues to produce its impact. We can provide the seed money, we can support the initial phases, but the long-term viability and feasibility, sustainability is very, very important. So when we want to ensure the long-term sustainability, it also becomes the responsibility that it's not only the financial resources alone. We have to build the capacity, we have to drive the technology, we have to share the knowledge of and best practices, that how well we can train. And if you look into the number of least developed countries as per the World Bank list, and even many of the developing countries, the resource efficiency becomes one of the major issues that can turn the result of the development finance into either direction. It could be very rewarding, it could be just another project. So it becomes also the responsibility to drive the partnerships that will collectively drive the know-how, the technology, and how well we can implement it. So when I look into the SDG 17 particularly, I have learned this based on my analysis or whatever little bit I have learned, that it's the multi-stakeholder partnership to ensure the outcome, and outcome matrix has to be very clearly drawn, not restricted to the sector, but to across the sectors, across the SDG areas, across the targets. And then, of course, encourage and promote the effective public, private, and civil society partnerships, as I mentioned, creating the golden triangle uh, of collective action for driving this. That is the 17.17. So the question is how we can do this, and we can, a lot of talking can happen, a lot of the lectures can happen, and discussions can take place. Uh, Change in the mindset of the conventional development space, that's very, very much required. It's not about one country, it's not about my country or your country or some other context. It's about what I uh, refer to always, the African philosophy of Ubuntu, that says that I exist because you exist, and that's why we all exist. So unless we have this mindset change in the development landscape, it's very difficult. And then the related aspect is innovation. And when we talk of innovation, it's innovation in defining the scope of partnership. For example, I'll just very quickly give one example. When I was working recently with one global partnership of education, and then we tried to pitch in some uh, companies operating in the other countries. Initially, the question was that, okay, what the companies will do if we are going to have the partnership between the two universities across the two country context. The issue was that sometime when the students, say from Africa, coming to India and studying in a university here, at the end of the program, when they go for the employment, they have no secured employment. If some Indian company or some country, the company where the student have studied, if the companies from that company and they are operating in their respective countries, if they can source the human talent here, that could be a win-win solution, contributing to employment, contributing to education, contributing to sustainability of across the multiple dimensions. So we have to define, we have to increase the boundary, we have to be innovative while we are forming the partnerships. We have to ensure that it's multi-sectoral, but also the multifunctional and across the different areas. And of course, data reliability and transparency is a major challenge that we have seen in the most of the monitoring and evaluation of the development projects, that we don't get reliable data. Sometimes it's based on some selective samples. So how we can have embedded mechanism for continuous improvement. It's not one time N&E reporting, rather it has to be informing the project and partnership that how we can improve further and how we can take it forward. And this all requires collective action, that what we need for promoting this. I would not be taking much time. I think I have taken 12 minutes out of my 15 allocated minutes. Just to summarize, it's a continuous journey with learning and improvement. Everyone has a role to play. Thank you so much for giving opportunity, and look forward to interacting with all. My Twitter handle is here, and also you can share it on my email. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Tripathi, for that very informative session and very powerful session, I should say. As you said, change in mindset is very much required, and collective action as well. Every small step counts. Thank you so much for joining us today in the summit
Thank
and
you.
inspiring us with your words.
Thank you so much.